Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another iWin Live edition. I know we've done a bunch of these lately, but oops, just setting this up finally. We are going to do a convention wrap up, a look at next year's convention, and we'll even talk a little bit about 2023. But this live, I kind of wanted to dedicate to conventions, being their nationals, minis, annual meetings, whatever you really want to call them. So that's what we're going to go with tonight. So try and keep the questions all geared towards that. Be aware, and I'm sure I'll say it throughout. Every state has different rules, regulations on what you can't do at conventions. So I'm not going to get into those. I'm not going to speculate about those because every state's totally different. And each state, when they've been ran in the different states, have had to adjust or change things accordingly. And I wasn't part of those decisions. So I can't even share what they did or didn't have to do or why they're doing something a certain way. Those answers would come directly for them, and they were probably already relayed over the years. But I know there's always questions on, why one convention did something one way and one convention did something the other way. And in general, we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I appreciate you guys sharing this. That always helps my wonderful analytics that Facebook likes to change, every other day. I think back to when I first started, I went and did posts and different things, and you would see how many views, and the numbers were just crazy how many views. But now everything's so geared towards video content and paid content that it's harder to get the word out with social media than it used to be years ago. So welcome all you guys. I see all the hellos. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to try and keep it right about an hour, maybe just over an hour tonight, just depending on questions and what's going on. But let's start with this convention. Let's do a little bit of wrap up, recap. I know some of you guys were there, enjoyed it, had a great time, maybe finally back at home now. And some of you guys, couldn't make it for whatever reason this year and decided to sit this one out maybe. And so you followed along at home and saw some of the things that we did. So I appreciate you guys joining us and watching these fun videos. But this year was in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was actually in Paradise. Technically, I believe the city that we were in was Paradise, Arizona, but basically right there in Scottsdale. Gorgeous resort. Just a really outstanding resort. My opinion, I've been to the last, I think it's 11 conventions. And I felt this was the nicest resort-wise that we had seen. It was big. It was spread out. But they negotiated wonderful, wonderful rates with the hotel. Some of you guys saw the room that I did I did the iWin Live with Dan's room. I had basically the exact same room. I kind of had like a house almost. I mean, it was huge. It was more than I needed. Looking back at it, I probably could have saved a few dollars and just had one of the regular rooms or one of their smaller suites. But I decided to splurge a little bit, like many. You hadn't traveled in a while maybe, and so you decided maybe you would do something a little bit extra. So that's how I ended up there. But the grounds were amazing. Tons of pools. The main pool, which I never went in the main pool, was fantastic. I mean, there were people. The pools were open 24 hours. And there were people always in the pool, but there was a waterfall, just a really neat area. They had a nice little bar restaurant. They had a restaurant for breakfast. They had a little coffee shop. They also, the nice thing about it was, because the resort was so big, some of you guys saw me walking around, they actually had golf carts. So at any time, you could call the front desk and say, hey, look, um, I need one for to take me up to the main room. And they would do that. Sorry. A lot of people asking about Club I Win. If you're part of Club I Win, normally Club I Win is the first Tuesday of the month. It is next Tuesday just because of the convention. So next Tuesday, if you're part of Club I Win, next Tuesday is when we will do that. So that's why I keep getting messages and texts saying, where's the link? I can't find it. So in a panic. But thank you for those stars. I know that everyone asks about those stars, and Facebook sometimes gives you stars. Sometimes you can, they're trying to encourage this. So for people like myself, they have all kinds of incentives and things to kind of push these. I'll be honest with you, it's your choice. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you watching. Your biggest thank you to me is being a member of iWin, and I know most of you guys are. Some of you just kind of tune in and catch these, and eventually, 6 months, a year down the road, you're like, you know what? Maybe I should give this a try. So that's why these things work. But any of those stars that come in, they can be turned into real dollars. And what I will do is I will turn them into real dollars, but I'm going to turn around and use them for the holiday iWin Give Back. That's going to be in December. We should probably set a date soon. I do have a trip win early in the month that I'll be on. I'll be headed to Vegas, and then I'm trying to do another club's Christmas party. So I'll need to try and set that. So we'll try and set that up. So we can kind of plan ahead and start looking towards that, because that's going to be a really big event. It was an amazing event last year. We did it for the first time last year, and we'll be doing it again this year. But anyways, back to the resorts. You could get these golf carts, so at least you didn't have to walk. I know one of Orlando had an amazing resort, beautiful resort, amazing rates. But some people thought it was a little bit far to go from one place to another. So this was a solution for that, which I thought was kind of interesting. Somebody asked if I found any interesting sweeps. I did go to the grocery. I did find one Arizona only tech sweep that happened to be on a wine bottle. But that was it. I really didn't get out as much as I wanted. I actually had a good amount of things planned, as some of you guys know, and I tried to do things. I knew that content on the site would suffer a little bit. It always does, and I think you've seen yesterday and today I'm back at it, and as soon as we're done with this again tonight, I'll be working on some stuff. We have a good issue scheduled for Thursday, so we'll get all caught up this week. The initial event of the convention is on Thursdays. That's when most people come in, they pick up their packets. There's a vendor room. The vendors are there, and you can go in and tour around there. And then the event starts on Thursday evening. That's pretty standard for the national convention. There's usually one convention that's considered the national convention. It's usually a little bit longer if there are multiple conventions in a year. Somebody said, check my volume. I need to come in a little bit closer and kind of talk a little bit louder and have this microphone. I'll try and make this microphone a little bit, I can't remember if that makes it more sensitive or if I'm making it less sensitive. So someone tell me if that's better or worse. But the kickoff event, it's kind of like a meet and greet type mingle thing. introduce you to it. But normally, what they do is they do what's called pick a prize, and it's kind of like a Chinese raffle style. If you've ever done the Chinese raffle, where you get so many tickets and you walk around, you choose what you want to put your tickets in, and see what you might win. And the reason they do that is they get a lot of big items for donations, maybe grills, coolers, things like that, things that might be a little bit difficult if you're flying home. Well, here you can choose to try and win that or not try and win that. So it's kind of your own choice, and that's the reason they do that. So I like that. What did I win? I won a grill. I won a little grill, like a tailgate type grill. It was a big soccer ball, and I actually was able to take it apart, and it is sitting in my dining room right now. So yes, I'm sure Lee appreciates that. But it is here. It did make it home safe and sound. So then, come to Friday. You have a morning session. You have an afternoon session. You have some speakers. You have some prizes, and then what was Friday evening? Friday evening, did they do the? Was that the casino trip? I think Saturday was the casino trip, if I remember. You know, sometimes they have various different trips. This year they had a casino trip, but that was on Saturday. Normally, if there's a casino nearby, a lot of times they work out something with the casino. And somebody mentioned, the schedule usually does not come out closer to the convention with specific dates. In general, it's kind of the same format, but it's tweaked. For example, we had done banquets always on Saturday evening. And it was going to start last year that the host decided, hey, let's do a luncheon because it made more sense with costs and gave people an extra night in town to go do things. Arizona decided to kind of follow suit with that. And so we did like a luncheon. So you had Saturday evening to go out and explore and do things on your own. A lot of people come in early and have really started to make these vacations. For myself, it is definitely, it's socialization, but it's a little more work than vacation. I did get there on Tuesday. I went to the Diamondbacks game on Wednesday. I wanted to check that stadium off my bucket list. I'm trying to get to them all. Some people went to Sedona. Some people went to the Grand Canyon. In fact, the hosts had arranged different tours for both of those. They also had done hot air balloon rides. So people got up at, I think it was like 3:30, 4 a.m. They went out in a hot air balloon, and they actually had numerous days that they got people to do that. I want to say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they did them. But there was numerous groups that went out, and some of you guys, I'm sure, saw the pictures. I did not do the hot air balloon ride. I've actually never done a hot air balloon ride. So one day, it's not a must-do on my personal bucket list. If I'm going to do it, if I had a choice, I'd like to do it over like Kenya, Tanzania, and the Great Migration, and seeing the wildebeest and the zebras and the migrations over there. I think that would be really cool. But a lot of people have started to make them vacation. Somebody asked how many vendors there were. I don't know how many vendors there were. Maybe, I'm trying to think, 20-ish? 20-ish is probably a good guesstimate. So, again, that varies from year to year on who's there and what offerings they have. Somebody said 15 vendors. 15 vendors, and then they had a charity area. So thanks for that information. Jen actually was in charge of the vendor room, so her information is much more accurate than mine. Saturday's always the big day usually. This year, again, it was a middle of the day type luncheon, which was really different. and they have all kinds of different games and prizes and stuff that go on the biggest day. And then people go about their way on that night, and then on Sunday, people kind of pack up. We talk about next year's convention. We talk about 2023's convention, or 2 years out, and kind of everyone goes their separate ways. Some people leave early, some people stay the day, some people stay overnight. It really varies on the individual. Myself, I caught a plane out that evening. By the time I got home, got my car, got my luggage, got to my house, I made it home somewhere around like 2:30 in the morning on early Monday morning, late Sunday night. So, just as an example. But that's a general national convention. So I'm going to answer some of these here in a second. These are some really, really good questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. But yeah, I'd love, throw your questions in there about conventions. Let's just we'll take some questions about conventions in general, and then we'll talk about next year, and we'll also talk a little bit about 2023 and what's going on with that. Somebody said Manchester be the first convention. Can we wait until more info comes out about the schedule to book the hotel, or do they run out of rooms fast for conventions? They have run out of rooms in the past. I know that we will have the majority of the rooms. Right now, you're okay. I would check with them and see. They may be able to tell you better on how many rooms they have blocked or how quickly they think they may go. I don't want to tell you to go ahead and wait and then you don't get a room. But as far as schedule, I can basically tell them, tell you, not speaking for them directly, but they have the dates on Wednesday through Sunday. Wednesday, they are looking at like some optional breakout sessions. Somebody asked about that, where breakout sessions are where, say myself, I host one and I do a presentation on Discord. And maybe somebody else hosts one and they do a presentation on TikTok. So what they're designed in breakout sessions are specific topics that are optional. And sometimes there's a minor additional cost. Sometimes there's no additional cost. It depends on what's involved, because sometimes they have to pay extra for that meeting space. And other times it's just included altogether. So that's going to vary from year to year, host to host. Based on what they have negotiated. We're going to, when things get a little bit more settled, I've asked Tanya, Karen, Dave, the family that's hosting next year, to do an iWin Live, and we'll try and get some questions answered. Some of you guys remember, these are the same people who hosted last year's virtual. So they were doing what was called Coffee with the Girls. And the girls were chickens and goats, and I don't even know what else they have out there, but they have kind of a little farm, I guess you could call it, but they have animals at their house. And so each morning, Tanya would kind of wake up and answer some questions for you and do some of that stuff. My guess is as we get closer, she's going to start doing those more regular again. I know people really enjoyed those last year, and I can't speak for her and what her schedule is work-wise and whatnot, but I think if she can fit it in, I fully would expect that she's probably going to do that. But I would say the majority of people are going to come in sometime on Wednesday. So if you're waiting to see what those breakouts are, I would definitely wait, or book your room Thursday through Sunday. Now, if you want to add Wednesday, add Wednesday. I don't think that would be a big deal, because the rates negotiated the same. They have a few days before and a few days after that the rates already negotiated. But there are people who fly in on Thursday. They do the convention. They're out right away on on Sunday. I've done that for conventions. Now, when I'm a little bit more involved, a lot of times I come in earlier. My guess is next year, because it's the same week as 4th of July. So Monday, I think, Monday's the 4th of July. A lot of people will be off work, and then the 5th. I will most likely fly the 5th, unless price-wise and whatnot, it just makes sense to fly the 4th, which would be Monday. That would be my guess. Now, granted, I haven't looked at flights or any of that. I did do my registration, and you do get it's a pretty significant price break if you are registered by the end of the month. So if you're pretty sure you're going, I would definitely do it. There's no reason not to do it before the end of the month. If you're not sure, I get it. I get waiting and doing all that. Let's answer some of these other questions. Yeah, somebody made the comment, if you do know you're going, you definitely want to stay at the convention hotel. It's a big difference. I enjoy staying at the convention hotel. I've only not stayed at the convention hotel once, and that was in Vegas. And I really missed it. I missed seeing everyone on a regular basis. I stayed at a hotel just kind of across or down the street because I had a comp room. So, and there were a couple of us who were like that, who had free rooms in Vegas, and so we stayed elsewhere, which isn't uncommon in Vegas. I mean, I'm not going to have a comp room most likely in Scottsdale, right by the host hotel. So, so that was the only reason. But staying at the host hotel is a nice big difference. Vacation for me next year: Maine, Vermont, Montreal. KB, that sounds excellent. I'm thinking of going to a Michigan one. So Michigan, while we're on the topic of conventions in general, Michigan, they don't really consider themselves a convention. They consider themselves a meeting or a party. And it's a one-day event, standalone event on a Saturday. The people running it told me, and I am 90% sure, and that's why I have the date on the iWin site, as the last Saturday in April. So I believe the last Saturday might be the 30th. So I need to, let's see if I can look. I want to double check that with them to make sure, and I will adjust that. But registration's not open for that yet. I believe it's the 30th. It could be the 23rd, but I'm almost positive it is the 30th of April. It is in Warren, Michigan, which is not too far from Detroit. There are a lot of people who now fly in for that event, including myself, where we fly in the night before. They do have a hotel. They have negotiated rates out. It's going to be a different hotel this year than they've had for the past, I don't even know how many years. But they're going to have a different hotel this year, they had told me. And then the event starts at 10 a.m. and goes to 4 on Saturday. And it's a little bit different. It's a lunch and some door prizes and different things like that. Again, Michigan has various state regulations that they need to follow. So they do things a little bit differently there. They also don't have speakers. So it's not, that's not really meant to be educational or learning. You're not going to go there and someone's going to give you a presentation on Twitter or Instagram or searching or things like that. That's not really what they're for. The night before, they always do fun little games, and they have a pizza party with all the people at the hotel that came in. I've been going to it for, I don't even know how many years straight that I've been to that. A lot of you guys know Al. Al's getting a little bit older. The convention or meeting, wears him down a little bit. So a few years ago, he had asked me to MC it for him. So I do most of the MCing usually there. over the years, it started to be more because I try and let him do as much as he wants and can do and feels comfortable doing. And then I kind of handle the rest of it. So, barring something changes, I should be there, and you'll have to deal with me at the microphone for that one as well. Some of you guys know, if you were there, you definitely know that I was asked to be the MC for Arizona. I enjoy it. It's lots of fun. I try and make it fun for you guys who are in the audience sitting there listening, because calling names can get rather boring. So I try and do it a little quick and hopefully keep the process flowing as smooth as possible. Somebody said they sent in a suggestion. Have they ever offered breakout sessions early Thursday to focus more on learning, so many people at different levels? So if we could bring our laptop and attend a seminar that gives us hands-on, would be very cool. Stuff like this is excellent. There's no doubt in my mind that Karen and Tanya will probably pop on here if they're not on here already and take a look at some of the comments and feedback. They've done this a lot. They've ran New Hampshire. They've ran Atlanta. They've ran Boston. And they ran the virtual. Now next year, they're going to be the first ones who are going to try a hybrid. So if you want to sit at home in your pajamas, fine. You want to come out and socialize, fine. So it's going to be different. And they're going to give it a shot. Tanya will be the first one to admit that she doesn't know exactly how it's going to go. They're going to give it their best shot, just like we didn't know exactly how the virtual was going to work out last year, and myself and a couple others helped out with pieces of it, but it was their show, and they pulled it off. Not what they planned on doing or expected to do, and kind of had about 2 months to put it all together and figure it out. It was, as lots of our plans last year really changed, and fortunately it worked out. And, there were some things that they learned, that even I learned, that I'm sure will go differently in the future, and then there's some things that worked perfectly. And that's really how conventions are. That's what hopefully continues to make them better. And usually it's someone having the guts to try something that maybe isn't the most popular opinion. I mean, there's been things I've seen like, oh, that's not going to work. And it works great. And it went wonderful. There's definitely things like that happen. But yeah, make those suggestions. They're really good. They have a contact form on the website. Somebody can post the website for registration. It's also on iWin. There's a convention tab that you can get to them. They have a Facebook page. I think they have everything, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but I think they mainly use their Facebook page. To repeat, do not run any of these conventions. As much as you may see me up front or involved, I do not run them. I do not make the decisions. I may be asked for input. I may be ignored for my input. But it's not my decision. It's not my neck on the line at the end of the day, because it's not my convention. So it's their decisions. The Arizona Club was so nice to arrange a private meeting room to play games. And they played games in the evening. So various different games. So yeah, this resort had various extra meeting rooms and space that they allowed them to use. And it was nice. So in fact, the room we did the iWin Live in, a lot of conventions, we wouldn't have had that ability to do that. And the reason being is, it might have cost, say, $500 for that room. It wouldn't have been worth the cost. The convention shouldn't pay it, but even myself to have to pay it, or to, charge like an admission fee to come out to it. It all is based on admission. It's all based on meeting space and what the contracts say. So. Build stuff, huh? Let's see. This is a good question. Somebody said, has there ever been accounting for people to see how much money's taken in and what's spent on? With the exception of the IRS coming in and checking, no, it's, that's, again, it's their budget, their books. Everyone has the option to run a convention, but I can tell you that it's expensive, and I personally think they should charge more. Every convention host that I talk to always tries and keeps the price down, because they want it for you guys to really get the biggest bang for their buck. But it forces them to be very, very budget tight. Almost always half of your money goes towards the food bill. Well, why is food so expensive? That sounds crazy, right? Why is a crappy chicken dinner and mashed potatoes $130 a plate? Well, if you've ever booked a convention, you'll realize that you're paying so much in food cost, and therefore you get your meeting space. Wi-Fi can be outrageous. We didn't have Wi-Fi out in the meeting rooms. You could buy Wi-Fi individually in meeting rooms, and I want to say it was about $100 for the weekend. It was about the price you would pay on a cruise ship. It was very, very expensive, and that was per person. If they wanted it for the whole meeting, and I may be wrong on the exact figure, but it was something somewhere near $10,000. I don't remember if it was just under or just above, but it was an awful lot of money to have Wi-Fi. Sometimes it's not as bad. Sometimes it is. These guys in Arizona did a separate company to do their audio video. If you notice, they were actually an outside company that they hired to come in and handle all the audio video. All the audio video is an extreme expense. So right there, when you start adding that up, that really takes a large chunk of the registration. So it doesn't take a mathematician to realize that it's a very, very tight budget that they run on. We're going to talk about who can run a convention. Carrie posted the NH 2020 Vision. It's the site. It's basically the site that they were going to have last year, and they've left it the same site, and they've changed the logo a little bit. You mentioned before that there is a local Maryland convention, or did I misunderstand that? There was a local Maryland convention. So let's talk about that. Who can run a convention? That comes up all the time. Why does so-and-so run a convention? Why is this? Why is it not in Nashville? Why is it not in New York City? I'd always wanted one in Washington. Can we go to Seattle? So on Thursday, typically, after the meet and greet, there's a past convention, future convention meeting. Anyone can come to it. So most of the previous hosts who have done national conventions come to it to provide input. People are considering it. And then you have some people who are just curious and come by to see what it's about. You have people like myself who are maybe involved a little bit more, so we tend to give some input. I personally hate going to them because I do tend to open my mouth and provide my input, good or bad, but I'm not willing to run one. So it's easy to talk from the outside and say, well, I think you should do this, but you know what, I don't want to run it. You run it and run it like this. Sometimes I feel that's what I'm doing, and am I helping the process or not? But so, for example, this year came in and you talk about things that worked this year so far, or not, because it's the first day of the convention, maybe leading up to the convention, how registration went, how the hotel contract went, what they did with audio video. For example, they learned that they could contract an outside company. They saved a bunch of money doing it that way. Things like that. Maybe some mistakes that were made. Well, we spent money on this and this we maybe could have done differently. We've talked about the little cards constantly. In the past, we've done laminated, barcoded tabs. This year, if you saw, we did a camera, and you could see each name and different things. The lanyards. Where did you get the lanyards? How did you get the logo done? What did you do with the artwork? The bags. I don't have my bag nearby anymore, but how did you get bags? Did a sponsor do them? What did you do for that? Oh, there's artwork on the bag. Well, where'd that come from? How much was that? All those things have costs to them, and then they'll get an update on next year's convention. So Tanya spoke on how things are going, where they're at, what they're thinking, what some of their ideas they're going to try are, because you start planning 2 years out, but when you're at this convention, you have your hotel in place, you have your dates, and you kind of have a general idea of what's going on because you should be ready to accept registrations. So, and they were, they're moving forward briskly. And then the question comes, who wants to run a convention in 2022 or 2023, 2 years out? And you see who has interest. Not too many people really had interest. So that's why we're at where we're at with 2023. And then you had some people step up and say, hey, you know what? I think I can do this. And it's kind of it's kind of talked about because some people may be ready, some people maybe not. Sometimes you may have 4 or 5 people who want to. It all varies. But you got to remember, I mean, we just had a crazy year last year where if you were in a hotel contract, I mean, it was a mess. You had to really hope and deal with them, and it was a lot of things unexpected. And that was what these guys had to do. Somebody asked dates for next year, 6th through the 10th, July 6th through the 10th. Somebody said the hotel registration is not set up yet, that they tried calling to make the hotel registration today. I have not made my hotel registration yet. I did pay for my convention registration. So I don't remember what it said on the site, but I'll pass that info to Tanya. Tanya probably knows already about that. RV Dave will be there. We'll have to get RV Dave back. Maybe he'll give away an RV. That'd be great. So anyways, as the couple days went on, 2 groups stepped forward, and one would really like to consider doing a cruise. We've done some cruises in the past, and the other one is considering doing more of a land option. And there's still some questions that need to be answered. So what they were trying to do was gauge the audience and see what do the majority of people want. In fact, I'm going to try this. I haven't tried one of these yet, so it may be a bust. But I'm going to try. So hopefully that worked. So they had a poll up. I just put a poll up now. Keep me on land. The ocean calls me. Or I don't really care. I'm going anyways. That's kind of my opinion. Again, I'm not the one running it. So this was not a, hey, if ocean wins, that's where we're going, or if land wins, that's where we're going. It was meant to gauge the audience. Well, by a raise of hands, it was very split. The poll that was done was probably about 65-70% in favor of land. They didn't have my added one that I don't really care. I'm going anyways. So one over the next couple weeks they'll see and they'll get some pricing and some bids and see what makes sense, and then they'll announce where we're going to go and who's going to be hosting. I think both parties would do a stellar job. They've both been involved with conventions in the past. I don't think people realize that the host matters a lot. It's not just destination. Destination is like where you want to go. I get it. But you want a good host. So now, again, both these coasts, I think, would do a great job. They're actually friends. They want to put on a great convention. So I'm trying this anyways. This is something new, so I kind of wanted to show you this. And this is very heavily to keep me on land is what you guys want. Now again, here's the thing: if the person who ultimately is going to run it decides they want to do a cruise, it's still a cruise. You have the choice. If you are the one chosen to say, hey, yeah, you know what, you should run the national convention, you can hold it wherever you want. You don't have to hold it in your home city. You can. Somebody mentioned Fargo, North Dakota. You can do Omaha, Nebraska. You could do, Maine. You can do Florida. You can do Vegas. It's where you want to. And nowadays, you can do a lot of this stuff online. So there are people who have hosted conventions that were in different cities. It's not logistically friendly, in my opinion. But some people, that's where they want to go. So let me show the results of this. I'll be curious to see this afterward because this is the first time I've tried this feature. This was a feature that was added. So obviously with this group specifically, which, this is a small sampling. But if you would want to see a convention, and again, I'm going to preface this with I picked 4 major cities that I thought were kind of fun. It doesn't mean we're going to any of those 4. It's up to the host. So these are fun cities. I always like going to a bigger city with lots of things to do, and but some of the most fun conventions have been the smaller ones. With not smaller conventions, but smaller areas. It's always nice maybe to go to an area that I never would have, and a convention forces me to kind of do that and then take a look and see that area. For example, Salt Lake City, Fort Wayne, Indiana. So things like that. Minneapolis, Minnesota. A lot of people probably never went to Minneapolis, went to the Mall of America. Stuff like that. So different cities have different reasons, and I've learned over time where sure I have my favorites. I'd love it to be in Orlando every year. It's in my backyard. It'd be great. It's easy for me. It's easy for me to travel, but that's not the reality. And it's funny that Nashville is just dominating this poll. Somebody asked about Nashville, and I was actually talking to someone who was considering a convention in Nashville, and I said I don't personally even know a very active sweeper, somebody who could run donations and things that lives there to get all that mail and everything. So that's where the logistic part comes in. So it's easy to say, yeah, let's run a convention in Nashville, but logistically, and everyone can say, well, it's you can do all that online, and you can go visit and do all this stuff. Because it's easy to say when you're not the one who has to do it or going to do it. So let me show these results. The interesting thing is New York City took second to Nashville. Orlando took last. I'm disappointed. I want in Orlando every year. So, again, we're a small sampling too. So what if you want to try and run a convention, but you know what, you're like, hey, one of these national conventions, they're just too big. I want to have like 100 people, 50 people or whatnot. A lot of people maybe start by running a mini convention. Maybe a Friday to Sunday, something shorter, something a little bit easier, not as broad, not with that label of the national convention, smaller hotel contracts, smaller committal of rooms. Some of you guys may not know that when you run a convention, you agree that you're going to spend X amount of dollars in food, usually typically on the convention, which is how you get your meeting space, but you commit to a certain number of rooms. And typically it's room nights, it's not rooms. So you say for example, for round number, you commit to 300 room nights. Well, if you only get to 250, you're responsible for 50 room nights. Even at $100 or so, that can really, really add up. So, as somebody just said, Karen jumped on here. So it was a lot more than I thought. I thought it was around 10,000 for Wi-Fi in the meeting rooms. 30 grand, $30,000 if we wanted Wi-Fi in the meeting rooms in Arizona. That's a lot of money. It's a big expense. So I know some of you guys are coming and they went too fast and I haven't got all this. So I apologize. The way it is set up, it is a little hard for me to go scroll all the way back and see all these. So someone said, the cruise, the Wi-Fi sucks and it's expensive. I've done 30 some cruises, and I mean, the Wi-Fi is way better than it used to be. It's not cheap. I'll give you that. So it was interesting. Some of you guys have messaged me about adding. I wanted to add more cities to this poll, but it only allowed me 4. So that's why the 4. And I just chose 4 cities at random. Again, this is no indication of where a convention may or may not be. Where was the land one? So they hadn't officially decided. They had some options they were thinking about. And it was interesting because someone's like, oh, you came to the convention and you didn't have a big proposal to submit, which normally that would be the case. But neither group, when they arrived, at least officially, were planning on, hey, we're going to host this. You got to remember, nobody had a really definite plan. So Steve, who kind of handles helping and coordinating and does a lot of work with trying to organize this, I joked around that, he asked myself if I'd be interested. He asked a lot of people. I joked around that I think I saw him out asking the maintenance guy. Hey, have you ever considered holding a sweepstakes convention? It's a tough job. It's a tough. I don't want to say thankless because there's some people who really, really appreciate all the hard work and effort that not just the hosts in Arizona, but every host. The Byron family's done it numerous times. Anyone who's put on a mini convention. No one will tell you, yeah, that was so easy. So I see it on the back. I was complaining because the day I arrived, I helped unload the truck with this huge 24-foot box truck. Some of you guys have seen the time-lapse video. And I was just complaining about that I didn't want to do it. And I was. So you can imagine how much more effort there is to it. You know, I stopped by Paul and Karen's room the one night when they were sending out all the messages. Their whole family was sending out the messages with the banquet tables. And I was tired. I sat there and watched them send it out and socialized and did not help. You know, so it happens. Yeah, and again, this voting is not, especially my voting, but even the one on the convention site, that is not, hey, this is what we're doing. It was to gauge the audience. It's just a poll. It's just a fun poll to help the people who are debating doing it make good, educated decisions. At the end of the day, it's still their decision. They can say, hey, you know what? We decided we're going to do it in London. I mean, it's truly, truly up to them. I'm getting some of you guys who want me to put some of this stuff up, and these polls had to be set ahead of time, unfortunately. And again, there's only so much. So if you have a city, you know, or an interest, feel free to comment. I mean, some of the guys who are considering conventions, I'm sure, are going to read these comments. It's going to help them make decisions. So by all means, you know, put some on here. When is the latest we will know where the 2023 convention will be, what month, what year? So where it will be, they're hoping to decide in the next few weeks. As far as what month and year, I can tell you to be in 2023. As far as what month, I can't. And it's not my convention. My opinion is, as soon as they know the dates, I wish they would just tell everyone. What they have done is they typically do not do it until registration closes, or even sometimes the week of the current year convention. So for example, Phoenix or Scottsdale was this year. The official dates for next year did not come out until last week. That's when people knew the dates. That's when registration opened. So next year at the convention, so next year in early July, right around that first week of July most likely, is when you will know for sure when and where. You're probably going to know where much further in advance. You know, especially if they decide to go the cruise and the sea route. But even the city, you're going to know that ahead of time. But dates, you're going to know next year. Now, could they decide, hey, we're going to host it in February 2023 or March 2023? They could. I don't think so. I mean, typically, in general, it has been summer to early fall. It has been in that range. A lot of it depends on hotel rates, contract. There's a lot of things that go into it. So I know that's not a perfect answer, but that's very consistent with how it's been. There's a good chance you guys will know when I know. As soon as I know the information, I will share it. As soon as I knew the dates and that registration was open for next year, you guys saw. I shared it with you guys. I did not know those dates, but maybe an hour before I shared them. On a cruise, you don't have the food or room rental costs. They also give a free berth for a 16th person, gave away free berths as an incentive to register early. Yeah, so there are benefits to a cruise as far as some of the different things. The biggest one being is you don't have that huge overcost, but you still have to commit to cabins. That's how you're going to get your meeting space. So if you don't sell so many cruises, then that's going to fall back on the host. Yeah, somebody mentioned, I mean, all kinds of different cities: Asheville, Fargo, East Coast, Nashville. Somebody just happened to say Nashville during the convention. That's the reason I put that on there. I had never thought about Nashville, but I got to tell you, I know a lot of sweepers, and I don't know any that I talk to on a regular basis that live in Nashville, which there leads to a little bit of a logistics problem. How's the decision being made as to the chosen host before presentations were made, before convention attendees, so we could consider host and location? In the past, that's exactly right. Like normally is say, Deborah brought up this question, so we'll use her as an example. So Deborah says, hey, you know what? I want to run a convention. I want to run it in St. Louis. This is the hotel I'm thinking. These are the dates. This is what I've looked at for my rates. These are how many room nights I'm committing to. This is what my AV is going to cost. This is what my Wi-Fi is going to cost. Here's the nearest airport. Here's how we can do transportation. The hotel offers this. I've already negotiated free parking. And you have all that in place. She comes up, brings that, and then say me, which I'm not going to lose my mind and do this. But I show up and say, hey, you know what? I want to host one in Orlando. I'm looking at this hotel. These are my rates. And I have my full proposal. So the people who have ran these before kind of help vet these people to talk about them and see. I mean, they encourage people to do this. But there have been people who showed up who don't really have their ducks in a row and are not ready and prepared with these proposals. Well, if you have two people like that, it's real easy. Just like Deborah said, you typically put it in front of the audience that's there, that's at the convention, and say, hey, you know what? Do you want to go with Deborah and go to St. Louis, or do you want to go with Tom and go to Orlando? They both have great proposals. They both have sound proposals. This looks great. Which one do you prefer? Whichever one gets votes, that's usually how we choose it and ends up. The problem lies when nobody wants to do it. So, when you have someone walking around saying, hey, do you want to host a convention, to people who they know may have the whereabouts to do this, I mean, it's a ton of work. That's where it lies. So both groups that are talking about it, they're also willing to help each other. One person wants to do sea, one person wants to do land. But they kind of want to gauge it, and between themselves, they're pretty much going to decide, because whoever doesn't is probably going to help the other person. So it's a matter of, again, both of them will say they didn't fully come prepared because they weren't planning to do this. So you have two sides who don't have definite dates or numbers. They have ideas in their head and things, but now they have to do a little bit of homework and come up with some real numbers and real figures, and then see what makes the most sense. I mean, either side could look at it and go, you know what I was thinking and where I was thinking to go, the way they want the contract and the down payments and everything, it's just not realistic. I mean, if you're running a convention, what if they say, hey, you know what, we need a $25,000 down payment. Where are you going to get that? Sure, some people can just take it out of their checkbook and the checking account and write a check. Other people can't. So there are some things that still need to be considered. But I encourage, if you want to run a convention, you basically you get a proposal right and you show up at the year before. And but right now it's challenging because you just went through a situation where you signed contracts and nobody could travel. That's a problem when you've committed to so many rooms and no one could travel. I mean, even the numbers this year were, I bet you they were 30, 40% lower because there's still a lot of people out there who just don't feel comfortable traveling or didn't want to be in a room with 400 people. Everyone has that right to make their own decisions. And I'm sure there's some people who wish they were there and just said, you know what, I'm just not right. I haven't left my house. I haven't done anything. So all those things come into play. Lots of different Honolulu, Hawaii. I mean, that'd be great. Hawaii'd be awesome. But again, it's logistics, cost, etc. For those who don't know, Deborah hosted a really good mini in Florida. And as much as I'd love to convince her to do another one, I think she's of my opinion that it's a lot of work. It's an awful lot of work. Arizona was hot, hot, hot. It was. It was about 110 degrees. It cooled down to a nice 100 degrees at night. I forget. I told the temperature the one morning. It was warm. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I go to Michigan for the mini and I forget to take pants and I'm always upset because it's too cold. So, temperatures. The weather was gorgeous. We had this little dust storm for like an hour, which was kind of weird and it was just different. In fact, the one live I was doing, I didn't realize how dark it was and how dark the image in the screen was. Hershey. Somebody mentioned Hershey, Pennsylvania. Carol. Anyone who's ever been to Hershey? Carol was a legal assistant, I believe. You signed a book to go to it. I remember the first time I signed up to go to Hershey, and I was like, "What in the world is this?" I get this. Here it is. Fill out this paperwork if you'd like to attend. Now I kind of understand why. But, Hershey used to do a mini each year. I got to tell you, I was supposed to go to Hershey and speak. I only got to go to Hershey the last year it was done. But that's when I won my big soccer trip. And so I had to fly to Kansas City for the game. For the U.S. soccer game. So I was there. The game was Friday night, which was the start of the Hershey convention. And the sponsor was wonderful enough when I said, hey, you know what? I need to fly to Hershey. I have a convention. I need to be there as early as possible on Saturday, if possible. So we went to the game Friday night. Lee went with me. Lee flew back to Cleveland. We lived in Cleveland still at the time. And I flew to Hershey. So that I was actually speaking at the Hershey convention. I'm trying to think, did I win? If I had, I win. I don't know if I win yet, or I just might have started I win. Might have been the first year I started I win. But Hershey was cool. I'd never been to Hershey. So it goes back to my thing where sometimes I think it's cool to go to a place that maybe you wouldn't go to. Like everyone loves Vegas. Everyone loves Orlando for the most part. Some people hate both of them. But I can go to Vegas whenever I want pretty easily. But how often am I going to go to Salt Lake City, Fort Wayne, Manchester, Minneapolis? Some of these places, they have had conventions that have put on fabulous conventions that maybe wouldn't have been my destination of choice for vacation, but you go. When our company, we always say a company trip. And one of the things the owner of the company tried to do a lot of times was take us to events and or places that we wouldn't typically pay to go on vacation. For example, I am not a diehard Elvis Presley fan. And one of the trips we went to Graceland. It was awesome. I had an amazing time, but I never would have thought to go to Graceland on my own. But it was a company trip, so we went. I have now been back to Graceland and took my father and my brother Jeff, who isn't with us anymore. But it was the last trip the three of us went on together. All because I went somewhere that I would have never went because I was forced to in some ways because it was a company trip. That's what it was. And the convention I kind of look at the same way where now you have a choice. You didn't earn this trip and you have a choice to spend your dollars or not spend your dollars. But sometimes going to a place is just, it was just different. You go do things that you normally wouldn't have done. Boston was cool. I mean, I went around, I walked around because I wanted to see the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Just something that I wanted to see. Yeah, Vegas was warm too. Let's see. I could bring Roscoe to the Orlando convention. I could have brought him here. It was, I believe, Arizona was pet friendly. I almost feel like Manchester might be. Here's the problem with Roscoe is Roscoe is he gets very anxiety. He freaks out so he would be good, but everyone would want to see Roscoe and pet Roscoe, and eventually he'd get annoyed and be like, And I couldn't have you hold him. He would want to get to me. He would freak out. Now, if I'm not around, he's very, very friendly. But when I'm around, he wants to be by me, or he wants to be at home. He wants to be by Lee. So it'd be really, really hard. Some of you guys have seen Caruso, the famous dachshund, and I love Caruso. And now he has a sister, and I watch their little, fun little videos and different things that they've done. Caruso, the celebrity dachshund, and they're so funny and so talented. But he's really good. He's really good about just sitting there at his book signings and everything else. Roscoe, he wouldn't have it. He'd be annoyed. So, Linda, you're asking about the two possible land options. There's not definites for land. They've talked about, because they're in the process of moving to North Carolina. One has a house in Salt Lake, but they're also open to an idea of maybe just even doing something else, doing just a different city. There was a New York Mini. New York did a Mini. Did they do it 2 years in a row? I can't remember if they did 2 years or 1 year, but I was able to go that 1 year. A Mini is basically usually a group, like a club decides, hey, we're going to run a Mini. So somebody mentioned about the cruise, sneaking for singles because the price is normally double. The one comment I'll make on that, they're looking at the same line. They're looking at the NCL line, which I actually love NCL, second to Disney. But that's who we did the most recent cruise with. NCL is one of the only ships that have cabins specifically for singles. So a single cabin that is actually much lower priced than having to pay a double occupancy. So that, in a sense, is a good thing. They don't have their uniducts in a row. See, I have my uniducts in a row. So I did bring these, as some of you guys had some fun with these, chasing these around and watching the silly videos. So I'm glad you enjoyed those. Have there been years with no convention if no one wants to do it? No. So there has never been a year yet, knock on wood, that there has not been a national convention. Again, there's a national convention is kind of like the biggest convention that is decided by the people at the previous convention usually. Um, with a lot of help from the people who've ran them before. I mean, it's one thing to raise your hand and go, well, I'll host a national convention. There's a lot to it. Even myself, they would, if I just said, hey, you know what, I want to run the national convention, they still want to see my plan. They still want to see where I have things going. And who is they? They are the people who have done this year after year after year, putting together different conventions and helping with different conventions. For example, now next year's a little bit different because the people running have run numerous conventions. But say Scottsdale, if they needed help with their contract, there were people who would help them. If they needed help with just various aspects of it, because some of the things you haven't been through yet. How many people attended this year? This year was one of the smallest conventions. It was about 375 people and 40 guests, roughly. So somewhere right around those numbers. Yeah, and again, each host is personally responsible for everything. They're signing their life away. So that was 109 one more. Yeah, it was somewhere around there. Oh, one of the people, Miss Robin, said, and I apologize because I'm behind on the comments, said, we're hoping to have a place narrowed down in the next couple months or so. We're doing the research and due diligence now. So, yeah, so have patience with these guys. Like I said, Robin, and she would probably tell you the same thing, I don't think she showed up on Wednesday or whenever she got in and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to run next year's national convention. It was for the fact that we really didn't have someone. Now Robin is one of the people who are thinking about the land portion of it. And she helped run Salt Lake City. So she's ran a convention before. The person running the cruise, she's been involved helping with various aspects because her mom actually ran 2 conventions. And I am sure her mom will help and support her as well. So again, you have people who know what they're doing. And I mean that very sincerely. I think that's the huge benefit for all of us is everyone involved with this process has been part of it and know what they're doing, that wherever it ends up being, it's going to be a good one. But it's not just quick snap your fingers, hey, this is where we're going to go. You have to see that. I did show the results for the cities, the portion now. Try and get caught up on some questions here. Yeah, so somebody mentioned the Metro Sweepers Club did several minis in Maryland, and they were lots of fun. And I loved the Maryland minis. One of my favorites, if not my favorite. They did a stellar job. They had 2 amazing clubs. I would love to see them do another mini, again. I learned not to drive there. I drove there maybe once or twice from Ohio. And it's just windy roads and it takes forever. I said, forget it. I flew after that. But they did a great job. And I'm really glad I got to go. And actually, a lot of the Metro Sweepers were, when they were doing their conventions, Iwin was just starting. It was really, really small. And I remember going there and I remember Sheila sending so many people over to my table and saying, Sheila said I need to sign up for you. Sheila said I need to sign up for you. And so I've been always very appreciative of that, and I try and remember that. And so their club means an awful lot to me because it really was helpful in the success of Iwin when we were just starting out. It's fine because I'm catching up to all the all I'm catching up to all the different people commenting about Maryland. So someone said one of my favorite convention locations was San Antonio. I didn't go to San Antonio. San Antonio was before my time. Um, you know, one of the regrets, one of the biggest regrets I have with all the conventions, and maybe take this as a word of advice. So, um, when I went to Salt Lake City, I was a vendor. Being a vendor, you're very very busy, and I flew in like I think like day of like Thursday, and I flew out on Sunday. I took I don't know if Uber exists back then, maybe a shuttle or a taxi cab to the hotel. I never left the hotel property. It's a big, big, big regret of mine. I wish I would have went and done the bobsled, or I wish I would have went and they had arranged this, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and they actually took people down. I was just so tired I didn't go, and just stuff like that I wish I would have done because I may never go back or never get to see it again. So I encourage you to go out and explore and do things in whatever city it is, especially if it's a city that maybe you won't go to again. So, hopefully I'll get back to Salt Lake City. I actually had a trip planned to Salt Lake City last May. I had won the airfare. I had won 2 nights at any Hilton property, and so I chose an amazing property somewhere near Salt Lake City. That's where we were flying into. I was going to do the bobsled, and I was going to do some of these things. And so, and that was one of the reasons we chose it, was this is a place we had all these win pieces. It wasn't a trip win, but it was these pieces that we could put together to go on this little trip and stay in an amazing hotel. So why not choose someplace that we had never been before? Now, granted, I had been to Salt Lake City, but to a hotel. You could put that hotel anywhere. I didn't go explore. So one of the people mentioned about Phoenix and doing Phoenix again. Would anyone be interested in that? I'm watching Robin answer somebody. I don't see the question she's answering. Let's see. And so some of you guys replied to each other, which is great. I'm glad you guys are, but sometimes I can't answer those only because I don't know the context of what you're saying, because I don't see what your response was to it. So somebody asked about the pricing for next year, and hey, if I'm not there, why is there not a price break? Well, and I hate to speak for them. We'll ask that question when they're on to let them answer it completely. But I can tell you that one of the biggest difference is they're going to ship things to you. If you're in person, none of that stuff's getting shipped. Robin had asked about what list of places people wanted the convention. Somebody, of course, commented Fiji. Another person, Hawaii. Robin, if you're still on, I threw up 4 random cities. Unfortunately, I couldn't put more than 4. So I just chose 4 major cities: Vegas, Orlando, New York, and Nashville. But I did ask people to comment. So I know Robin has mentioned that she is open to consider looking at locations that are not in her immediate area. You know, again, there's lots of factors that come in. It's not just as easy as say, all right, hey, we are going to Seattle and we're going to have this great convention. You got to find a meeting space. You got to have a hotel. Is there a shuttle from the airport? How do people get from the airport? Will Wi-Fi be included? Is there enough meeting space? What is, there's just so many questions that go into any conventions. It's a huge task for anyone, and utmost props to anyone who's ran minis, who's ran nationals. I've had amazing times, amazing experiences, met some amazing friends. I've been to almost all of them. I try and get to almost all of them. I try and support all of them. They all work their butt off, I'll tell you that. And there's not one of them out there that says, boy, I hope you come in here and have a bad time. They want to show you the best time possible. And there's times things go wrong. They'll tell you. Every single one of them will tell you something that went wrong. It happens. But, you learn from it. That's why we have these meetings, too, so that you see what worked and what didn't work, or you see a different point of view. I saw a different point of view on a change made that I never had even thought about until this convention. And it was a change that had been made next year, and I was really surprised. I never thought about it. So yeah, somebody had kind of answered that question. Yeah, North Carolina ran a mini for a couple years. They also did a national. It's interesting. Nashville is very popular. Nashville's a fun city. I'm not going to lie. Again, you don't know. You may go to try and get a contract, and it is just outrageous. That they might have to charge you $400 or $500 to run a convention there. Well, then you may not be going to Nashville. There's lots of logistical questions that you have to look at. And Robin made the comment. I know Robin's been real involved in this, and Robin and I have known each other for quite a long time, and she's always given me a lot of support with iWin. We were friends and talked before I ever had iWin, so it was kind of fun. And for some reason, our vendor tables are always close by, so we usually chat with her and Todd, and I've become friends with them over the years. One of the things she said is, sometimes you pick a location to more get out and explore America. So it's kind of neat. Somebody asked about things in the vendor room, and Jen answered it. Envelopes, hand printing, lucky items, cups, mugs, sweepstakes, newsletters, T-shirts, sites like mine. So I'm usually there so that you can meet me. And even though technically in reality you can sign up online, you can you can register right now online. You don't have to do it at a convention, but a lot of people have questions or different things, and so I'm there just to it forces me to be in one place for a few hours that you can come in and talk to me and see me. Yeah, you have a huge break if you don't have to fly to a convention. You save the airfare, or you can drive. I mean, some people drive further. I have a bad time driving to Miami because I just don't like being in a car that long. So I'm one of those people who'd rather just get in a plane and fly, even though it may take me longer to go to the airport, to park, to sit in line, to do all that. I just fly. What's the change that I really love? So one of the changes that I really love, and this is just my opinion, doesn't mean it's right or wrong. I'm sure some people who disagree with me, but you will not, the session prizes, the door prizes, you will not have to be present to win. Now, it's a little bit different next year because you're going to have a virtual aspect, so you can be at home. So you can't really you know, even if I'm logged into my computer, I could be taking a nap in the corner. So it's kind of hard to require someone to be who's present at the convention to be in the convention. But here's what I thought about: is in years past, you had to be in the room. And if you went to the restroom and you were back in a minute or two, no big deal. But if you decided, you know what, I'm just tired, I'm going to take a nap, or you know what, I want to go to the pool, or I'm going to the casino and I'm on a hot streak and I'm staying, and I'm up front and I called your name, you didn't get your door prize. That was just the way it was. Next year that won't be the case, and I personally really like it because I'm speaking from my personal experience. I've seen, unfortunately, because sometimes we're a little bit older crowd, I've seen people actually leave who got sick. And we had a situation this time, a person went to a hospital. I've seen it happen before where they went to a hospital. I've seen it where a situation where a person just doesn't feel well. And so rather than being around everyone, they said, you know what, I just went to my room, took a nap. Now again, you have to do all or none, because it's kind of like calling in sick at school. I mean, how many of you, like me, called in sick because I was going to opening day and I convinced my mom that I had a doctor appointment or dentist and she needed to tell them so I could go see opening day? I did not miss opening day in baseball when I was in school. March Madness, I would ask my mom to get me out so I could do March Madness. So you have to do all or none. So next year it's none, which I think is great. And you spend a lot of money to come to a convention. You do. You have air, you have travel, you have hotel, your registration, everything. You paid your registration, even if you're laying in bed sleeping, and I'm sitting there. We both paid our registration fee. So I really like that change. That's just my personal opinion. Again, some of you guys may disagree with it, but it's something that before this year, I just never really thought about. I do remember listening to some of the drawings years ago and going, well, you know what? I know I'm not in this one, or my name's already been called, so I'm going to go use the phone, or I'm going to go to the bathroom now because I don't have to worry about my name being called. Well, that's just kind of silly. So, at least in my opinion, when I started to think about it after reading that. Yeah, so Robin made the comment about Nashville being pricey. Nashville's like the bachelorette capital of the world, which for some people I'm sure makes it much more enticing to go. It is. Hotels aren't cheap. Some of you guys, I remember Boston hotels being, people thinking were expensive. And they were expensive, but compared to what a hotel would normally cost in Boston, they were 30-40% under that because they had negotiated a really good rate. It was Boston. San Diego last year. San Diego, or 2 years ago, negotiated a very good rate for a San Diego hotel. San Diego hotels are very, very expensive. That's why, like New York City, as great as it sounds, think of how much meeting space is going to cost, let alone room. I don't know when some of you guys have stayed in New York City last, but you want any nice room in New York City, you're looking at $500 a night with no trouble at all. It's going to be very hard to find anything under that. So think about it like that. Let's see if we got any last questions. We'll wrap up this one way, way longer. So West Palm Beach, great. Close to casinos, beach, shopping, golf, dining, etc. Tons of transportation options. I love that people are like naming their hometown. I would be the same way. I'd be like, come to my hometown. I don't have to go, but 10 miles down the road would be awesome. Now, West Palm's cool. That's where they held the mini. I had a great time in West Palm. Went out to the little dinner out in their little promenade shopping area. But it was a neat area, and I actually was able to drive it because it's only, what is 3 hours, 4 hours? Another Fargo, North Dakota. I gotta tell you, with the exception of what was it, a TV show or a movie, I knew nothing about Fargo, North Dakota, which is kind of back to my logic before of, hey, do you want to go to Fargo just because? How many times would you ever go to Fargo? I kind of get that. Why are videos no longer done? The person who used to do the videos doesn't do them anymore. So that's kind of why. If you want to run a convention, you want to get a videographer, and you want to, pay the costs in the filming or work something out with them. Again, those are decisions that whoever's running the convention can make. Yeah, this is somebody makes a good point. There's a reason why some cities have not had a convention. It's very expensive. It's not that people don't want to go to those areas. It's just when a person looking at areas to do them, it can be high. Now, I don't know what a hotel goes for in Fargo, North Dakota. Maybe someone could tell me. I don't even know if I have a direct flight to Fargo, North Dakota. Some of you guys are pitching Fargo. I'll have to do some research. I can't tell you anything about Fargo. But before I met some of you guys, I couldn't have told you anything about Manchester. I couldn't have told you anything about Fort Wayne, Indiana. I couldn't have told you anything, even though Salt Lake City is big. I knew they had hosted the Olympics. I didn't know a whole lot about Salt Lake City. Yeah, somebody said Alaska. I think a lot of people would like to go to Alaska. The problem is the cost to get there for so many people would be really high. Kind of like Hawaii. They sound good in theory. Now, Hawaii, I'm sure meeting space is very, very expensive. So, see, I really think we just do Florida. And we can do like an all-day sweeper Disney trip. Even though walking around Disney, you're not going to find many sweepstakes in their gift shops, I'll tell you that. But you could get all your pictures done for all their sweeps that are going to be going on with the 50th anniversary. But you see, we couldn't do it in 2023. It'd be over. So, is there a list of names posted anywhere that were in the memorial? Well, that's a really good question, Kathy. Let me see if I can get a hold of. There were 2 memorials done, and let me see if I can get a link or something, and if so, I'll post them on the iWin Facebook page. But there were 2 memorials done, and we'll end with this one in honor of Patty, the former owner of Sweepsheet, who unfortunately passed away last year, and then there was another one with those we have lost in the last 12, 16 months. I think it was since last convention or so, and there was I want to say about 8 or 10 people that were involved, and a lot of them that regularly attended conventions. So a lot of people knew who these people were, saw these people, talked to these people each year. So I hate to end on that note, but it was a very good memorial put on by Jen and Donna, who were at the convention with contributions from various people and family members. But a really good moment for the convention. So thank you for tuning in. Again, next year, Manchester, New Hampshire. We'll see you there. 2023, I will give you an update as soon as I know something. And the people involved all know how to get a hold of me. They know that this is a good outlet for information on the convention. I am sure that they appreciate all your feedback, good or bad, and all your city recommendations. It only makes their choices of 4 now 40. But they will look at that and see what they can do. Let's see. Any last questions? Somebody made a comment about, like the content of the speakers and different things. The only thing I'll say with that, again, that's going to be up to the individual hosts, what they want to do. We've had anything from entertainment to guest speakers to people like you and I sharing trips, or people sharing educational videos. It really varies on the host, but also it varies on who's willing to speak. Some people just, it's you still have to ask people to speak. Like if somebody asks me, Tom, you want to speak, and I just don't feel like doing it, they can't force me to do it. So that all comes into play as well. And the volunteer, there's tons of volunteers who help put this stuff on. So, did somebody put the link to the memorial in there? If not, I will try and find that out. Oh, somebody, okay. Jen said she can send the PowerPoint for Patty. So, yeah, if Jen wants to send me that. So, other than that, you guys have a great night. Thank you again for all your support. I can't thank you enough. If you're part of Club I Win, because now we're getting closer to 10 o'clock and my phone is blowing up again, next Tuesday for Club I Win. Not this Tuesday. It's normally the second Tuesday. It's going to be the third Tuesday this month. If you don't know what Club I Win is, stay tuned to the I Win newsletter. It is part of I Win. It's very limited, and if there are any openings, they will open up in November for next year. So there's not a waiting list. Other than that, have yourself a great rest of your night, and I will talk to you guys all again soon. Have a great night.